In 2017, Loblaws did something that no major corporation ever does. They admitted to running a criminal cartel. For 14 years, Canada's biggest grocery chains had been coordinating bread prices through weekly phone calls. The evidence was undeniable. The overcharge to Canadian families was estimated at $5 billion, and the punishment, a $25 gift card and complete immunity from prosecution. While you were probably arguing about politics on Facebook, three families quietly tightened their grip on something far more important than any election. They control what you eat and what you pay for it. If your grocery bill has doubled since 2020, this isn't inflation, it's extraction. And today, we're going to follow the money to show you exactly how they did it. Let me show you something that should make you angry. In 2019, Loblaws reported a profit of $1.1 billion. By 2023, that number hit $2 billion. That's an 80% increase in 4 years. Metro went from $750 million to over $1 billion. Sobeys jumped from $500 million to $800 million. These aren't small bumps. We're talking about profit growth of 30 to 60% during the worst cost of living crisis in 40 years. Now, here's what they told Parliament when they were called to testify in 2023. Galen Weston Jr., the billionaire CEO of Loblaws, sat in front of elected officials wearing a $2,000 suit and explained that grocery stores operate on razor-thin margins of 2 to 3%. He said his hands were tied. He blamed suppliers. He blamed global supply chains. He blamed everything except the numbers in his own financial reports. Because if you actually look at those reports, operating margins didn't stay at 3%. They climbed to 6 and 7%. When you're making billions in profit, even a few percentage points means hundreds of millions of extra dollars coming out of your pocket. During this same period, food bank usage in Canada doubled. In 2019, 1.1 million Canadians needed food banks. By 2023, that number hit 2 million. A third of those people had full-time jobs. Let that sink in. People working 40 hours a week couldn't afford to feed their families without charity, while 3 grocery chains were posting record profits every single quarter. Canada didn't always look like this. In the 1970s, we had dozens of regional grocery chains. There was real competition. Then came the consolidation wave. In 1985, Loblaws merged with Westfair. In 1998, Sobeys bought the Oshawa Group. Every decade, another round of mergers. Every time, the Competition Bureau said yes. The killing blow came in 2013. Loblaws acquired Shoppers Drug Mart for $12.4 billion. This was the largest retail merger in Canadian history, and it fundamentally changed the game. Suddenly, one company controlled not just grocery stores, but pharmacies, health products, and financial services through PC Financial. That same year, Sobeys bought Safeway Canada for $5.8 billion, wiping out competition across Western Canada. Today, 3 companies control 70% of the grocery market. Loblaws has 30%, Sobeys has 22%, Metro has 11%. The Weston family, the Sobey family, and the Metro ownership group have more power over your daily life than any politician you'll ever vote for. And here's the kicker. These aren't just grocery stores anymore. Loblaws spun off Choice Properties, which is now Canada's largest commercial landlord. If you want to open a competing grocery store, there is a good chance you'll have to lease space from a company owned by the Weston family. When Sobeys or Metro lease store locations, they include restrictive covenants that prevent landlords from renting to other grocery stores for 20 years or more. They've weaponized real estate to lock out competition before it can even start. So how do 3 companies coordinate prices without getting caught? The bread price-fixing scandal gave us a rare glimpse behind the curtain, but that was just the obvious stuff. Weekly phone calls to set bread prices. The sophisticated tactics are far more subtle. First, there's the Trade Association. The Retail Council of Canada hosts regular meetings where executives from all 3 chains sit in the same room. They call it benchmarking and information sharing. Technically, they're not supposed to discuss prices, but they're absolutely sharing intelligence about costs, supplier negotiations, and market strategy. When Metro's CEO gets on an earnings call and thanks competitors for maintaining pricing discipline, that's not an accident. That's a signal. Second, private label dominance. President's Choice, compliments, selection. These store brands now make up 30% of grocery sales, and they have profit margins 2 to 3 times higher than national brands. Here's how it works. Leblanc finds a successful national brand product, reverse engineers it, manufactures a copycat version, places it right next to the original on the shelf at a lower price, and captures all the margin. You think you're saving money buying the store brand, but you're actually making them richer. Third, and this is where it gets dark, they've built a system to squeeze suppliers that would make a loan shark proud. If you're a food manufacturer and you want your product in Loblaws, you pay a listing fee just to get on the shelves. Then you pay slotting fees for good shelf placement. Then you pay promotional fees if you want an end cap display. Oh, and they'll pay you in 90 to 120 days. But if you don't hit their volume targets, they'll retroactively demand discounts and threaten to delist your product entirely. Small suppliers can't survive this. So the supplier side consolidates too, and suddenly you've got a handful of massive food manufacturers negotiating with a handful of massive retailers, and the consumer has zero leverage in any of it. The loyalty programs are the final piece. PC Optimum has 18 million members. That's half of Canada's population. Every single purchase you make is tracked. They know exactly how price-sensitive you are based on your buying patterns. There's evidence emerging that they're experimenting with personalized pricing, where the app shows you higher prices if their algorithm determines you'll pay it. This isn't a conspiracy theory. Amazon's been doing it for years. The technology exists, the data exists, and the incentive exists. Here's the part that should really make you angry. The Competition Bureau has a yearly budget of about $50 million. Loblaws spends more than that on legal fees alone. The Bureau has 400 employees total. These corporations have thousands of lawyers. When the government tried to investigate the bread price-fixing scandal in 2017, it took them years just to build a case, and in the end, Loblaws cut a deal. They admitted guilt in exchange for immunity, which meant no criminal charges, no executives going to jail, and no real consequences. The merger approval process is a joke. The threshold for review is $93 million in assets, which sounds like a lot until you realize these companies move billions. And even when a merger gets reviewed, the burden of proof is on the Competition Bureau to demonstrate that it will substantially lessen competition. That's an incredibly high bar. The Loblaw Shoppers merger went through, the Sobeys Safeway merger went through. Every major consolidation of the last 30 years was approved. Then there's the lobbying. Between 2020 and 2023, these three companies spent over $4 million on registered lobbying. That's just what's publicly disclosed. Former cabinet ministers sit on grocery chain boards. Former Competition Bureau officials work as consultants for the same companies they used to regulate. The revolving door is spinning so fast it's a wonder anyone can walk through it. When Parliament held hearings in 2023, they brought in the CEOs. They asked tough questions. They got angry for the cameras, and then nothing happened. No new legislation, no forced divestitures, no windfall profit tax. The grocery chains agreed to a voluntary price freeze on some store brand items for 3 months, prices that were already inflated, and everyone declared victory. This isn't normal, by the way. The UK has 4 major grocery chains controlling a similar market share to Canada, but their regulators actually have teeth. They created an independent groceries code adjudicator with the power to fine companies up to 1% of revenue for abusing suppliers. Their average grocery margins stay around 2 to 3% because the government enforces it. Germany allows discount chains like Aldi and Lidl to operate freely, and surprise, grocery prices are about 30% lower than Canada. France has strict price control regulations on essential items and regularly fines retailers for cartel behavior. Just last year, French regulators hit several chains with fines totaling hundreds of millions of euros. Australia is dealing with a similar duopoly problem with Woolworths and Coles, but their competition regulator is actively pursuing forced divestiture. They're talking about breaking up the chains. In Canada, we can't even get our government to investigate properly, let alone take action. So here's my question for you. Knowing what you know now, what do you actually do? Do you boycott, knowing that there are barely any alternatives? Do you wait for the government to act, even though they've had decades and done nothing? Or do you accept that this is just the cost of living in Canada? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because I'm genuinely curious how people are dealing with this. And if you want more breakdowns of how the system is rigged against you, subscribe, because we're just getting started. I'll see you in the next one.